Hey everybody, I'm meteorologist Gavin Sandell. Well, now that we're done with true warmth, drivers have to take some extra caution when navigating the roads. Today we'll talk about two things, leaves and potholes. We'll start with leaves first because that's the season that we're in, fall. And what I'm going to do is compare three different scenarios and three different cars as well. We're going to make these guys stop when going 40 miles an hour and compare it between a dry, a wet road with leaves on it as well. And as you can see, because of the traction between the tires and the road is maximized on a dry road, it only takes about 80 feet for those cars to stop on a dry road. Now you're doubling the distance when you have to stop on a wet road as well, because the traction between those tires and that wet road, that layer of water makes it just a little bit tougher. But now when you add leaves on top of that water as well, you're almost tripling. You're actually going above triple the distance that it takes to stop from going 40 miles an hour on a wet road with leaves compared to all the way back there on a dry road. So it's almost like ice where you just have to be super duper cautious, especially if you're driving on a lowly traveled country road, especially when those leaves have just fallen with a lot of foliage as well. But this isn't the most popular or maybe infamous thing that we see. This is something that we all hate, potholes that typically form during the winter months because of the relationship between water and ice as well. But it all starts during rain or maybe snow that ends up melting. It seeps through little teeny tiny cracks in the pavement surface and ends up forming in a little puddle underneath it. But what happens after that is it freezes, and once the water freezes, because of the density difference, that water being more dense, being more compact, and that same amount of ice being less dense, it actually expands. If you've ever frozen a water bottle and seen it explode, basically, that's why, because that water is less dense. Once that water freezes, it expands, and then once that water ends up melting or maybe just getting evaporated, it does the damage anyway. So once that tire rolls on top of it and it melts, then you have that hole that forms during the winter seasons that we all hate. And with more traffic, with more longevity with that hole, then you're just going to get more and more of a larger hole. That potholes just eventually get such a nuisance, and they get called on by the towns and the different cities that end up treating it. And it's a very, very never-ending cycle as well. But the so-called pothole season won't start until later on in the winter, when temperatures will regularly cycle at above then below that freezing threshold. But for now, I'd say stay alert on wet, leaf-filled roads. For Weather 101, I'm Gavin Sandell.